Good morning, friends. It's kind of a blustery day outside. It is currently Wednesday, February 15th. So you've seen the first part of Manga Love, and that is me reading all of Demon Slayer. I decided to pull that into a separate video because that was like a half an hour all on its own. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I'm going to talk to you about the 4 volumes that I've read since then. And then I do have a pile to kind of work my way through today. I have the day off, so I'm going to read as much as I can. But I do also want to take some time to spend some time with books today too, because I feel like I just really want to today. So I'm going to. So first up, I have read The Case Files of Julia Richard, Volume 3 and 4. I feel like both of these volumes were really solid. I still really love the art. I love the way of storytelling and the education that you get on jewels and jewelry and their origins and the little mysteries behind each of them. It's really fantastic. I really enjoyed both of these volumes. I continue to really enjoy the series. I am tempted to pick up the light novels because I've heard the light novels are also fantastic. So that is something I am considering. If you think I should, let me know. But the manga has been fabulous so far. The other 2 volumes that I read were also from the same series, and it was volumes 8 and 9 of Mao. I wanted to get caught up on Mao. I've had these sitting around too long, and I really enjoyed these. I thought they were fantastic. I continue to really enjoy this particular Rumiko Takahashi series. I feel like she's learned from all of her other series, and she's not making super big repeats and super big cycles like she did in some of her earlier series. And I'm really enjoying the direction of this one. I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. And again, since it's volume 8 and 9, I can't say too much. But yes, love, love, love this series. So yeah, I've got a nice little pile of manga here that I can work through. But yeah, I do want to spend some time with books today. I might start a cowboy romance. I've been recently asked for an updated cowboy romance video, and I realized I haven't been reading too many lately, so that kind of makes me sad. So I think I might pick up one of those today. I'd love to get back to Someday Maybe. That one's just a very heavy book, so I haven't gotten back to it. And I think I'm in the right headspace today for that, so I think I'm going to do that. And then read some manga to kind of break things up. So that's kind of my plans. Come along with me. And I may take myself out to a fancy lunch because you guys have also seen that Secret Project is live. It's actually performing really well. I'm so glad y'all have really enjoyed it. If you're here because of that, welcome. I'm appreciative that you're here. And I really think that it was an amazing project. It took a lot of work and a lot of time, but I did really enjoy myself doing it. So since that went so well, I might treat myself to a fancy lunch today. We'll see. I'm also the kind of person that when it's like blustery and cold and that kind of stuff out, I'm like, not so much. I kind of don't like to leave the house. I like to hunker down. So we'll see what I decide. I might do fancy dinner with the hubs tonight instead. We'll see. Hello. So I am quickly here to share something with you. I got another package from Bloom, so thank you to my friends at Source Books and Bloom Books who sent this on to me. And there's 2 books inside. I'm not 100% sure what they are. We're going to find out together. But I thought I would just open it. Here on camera with you. Oh, okay. So these are both from the same series. So it's The Night and the Moon by Piper CJ, and then its sequel, The Sun and Its Shade. Now, I have not read these at all. I've heard they're fantasy romances, so I am interested because I do like a good fantasy romance. So I'm really intrigued to see what I feel about these, but thank you again to my friends at Source and Bloom who sent these my way because I'm very excited. I may add them to my March TBR, but they may not get read till April, but either way, I'm very, very excited about them. So with that said, I have one more clip that I'll probably film for this vlog when I get home to kind of talk to you guys about what I've been reading lately, because today is the last day of February. But yeah, we'll talk soon. Okay, friends, so I failed epically in vlogging over the last couple of weeks. It's just been a lot. There's a lot that's been going on. I had a bit of a mental breakdown. I'm okay now, I promise. But I just kind of took the time I needed. So with that said, this is going to be more wrap-up style than I've done in a while, so I hope you still enjoy it. But regular vlogs will be returning in March, I swear. This one's just a really bad one because I had a really bad couple of weeks. So Manga Love went really, really well. I believe, let's see. I've got my manga journal here. What haven't I talked to you guys about yet? I'm in the middle of editing this vlog, y'all. It's bad. Okay, so there's only 3 volumes that are not in this stack that I didn't talk to you about. So first up, My Love Mix-Up volumes 5 and 6 were absolutely adorable. 0 regrets. Everybody should be reading this series. We have 2 boys who are discovering their sexuality. At this point, they're at least bisexual. If not something else, they're exploring their sexuality, and it's glorious to watch them do it together. And then I did read volume 6 of Beauty and the Feast. Again, this is an age gap story in which romantic feelings are starting to surface a bit more. I've heard this one ends at like 10 or 11 volumes. So I think I'm in for the long haul. I can understand this one not being for everybody. So I'm really interested to see where I land with that one. I guess the other thing that's not in this stack I read digitally, and that is I read volumes 8 through 12 of One Piece. So I'm caught up to volume 12 of One Piece. I'm still behind for the goal that I wanted for the year, but I'm getting much closer. I should be up to 18 by now, but that hasn't happened yet. So I will be catching up. If you remember, you'll start seeing those vlogs very, very soon. And yes, everything else is in the stack physically for me to show you. So I will do that. So first up, I did do a try 3 here at the end of the month, and that is for Banished from the Heroes Party. I read the first 3 volumes. My full thoughts are in the video, and I will just direct you to that one because I do have quite a bit I need to talk about here. So I actually think these last 4 I forgot to put in my stats. Whoops, that's a bad on my end. But I did read Vampire Dormitory Volume 9, which is one that I did pick up this month in February. And my rule that I made with Izzy when I bought these up, I'm like, I did a bad. I took the photo. She's like, you have to read all of those before the end of the month. And I did. I'm very proud of myself. This was in that stack. I've talked about most of the others that were in that stack at this point, but still really love this series. I know it's 10 volumes and ongoing in Japan, so I don't think we're going to see a volume for a hot minute, but I really love the direction that it's currently going. And then I also, because I picked up volume 23 of Snow White with the Red Hair, I had to catch up. So I read volumes 21 through 23. I really like the way that the Leela's arc concludes and where we're headed for the next arc. I'm really intrigued to see the growth of the princes, of Shirayuki, of Obi, of everybody around. And as even little Ryu, because he's very much growing and maturing and getting taller, and it's amazing. I absolutely adore where this is headed. I don't know how much longer the series is going to be because it's still ongoing in Japan, but I'm here for the journey as long as we have the journey. Alrighty, the last 3 volumes that we have to talk about, 2 are from the same series and 1 is not. So I did catch up with The Apothecary Diaries. I adore The Apothecary Diaries. It is one of my favorite seinen series of all time. And that's putting it up there with like Sweat and Soap and BL Metamorphosis and other things that I absolutely love and adore. This is fantastic. This is very like political fantasy manga, and that is just my jam lately. So I am just living in this life and loving it so much because it is so, so good. If you are not reading the Apothecary Diaries, please do. There is an anime coming out soon, so if you're not a manga reader, please try the anime. It's absolutely, I'm so excited for the animation on it. It looks great. And so I'm very, very excited for this. The last volume of manga I have to talk to you about is Romantic Killer Volume 2. So this is a shonen title coming out through the Shoujo Beat imprint, which I have all sorts of feelings about, but we're not going to talk about them today. Anyways, so Romantic Killer is essentially about this girl who wants nothing to do with romance. She's a gamer. She just wants to live her gamer life with her big chubby cat. And this little magical guy pops in and says, no, you need romance in your life. So he keeps throwing her in every romantic instance / trope with various guys at this point. There are 3 involved in the first 2 volumes. And it's just shenanigans galore. I'm enjoying it, but I can understand why someone wouldn't at the same time, because you cannot take this manga seriously. This is meant to be a comedy. It is meant to be satire. Do not take this series seriously. If you do, you will not enjoy it, just because it's poking fun at every romance trope. So I think if you're a heavy romance reader, you can appreciate Romantic Killer as long as you don't take it too seriously. So with that caveat in there, I am enjoying it. I do plan to continue, and I'm just enjoying my time. All right, let me grab my reading journal to make sure that I talk to you about everything, because I read some digitals, some audios, and then I have a few physically here in front of me. Let me get to the right page here. So one that I don't have physically on me at the moment, but I did read physically, is Belle, or Belle and the Bow, by Beverly Jenkins. I absolutely adored this YA take on this piece of history where this girl is escaping through the Underground Railroad north, and she loses contact with her dad because they get stopped by people who turn in slaves. And so she is kind of thrust upon this family called the Best family. They take really sweet and generous care of her, and it's absolutely stunning. I absolutely loved this book. It's a very short, not even 300-page read, and I don't know why people don't talk about this. This is an absolutely stunning story. I loved everything about it, and I would definitely recommend it. One of the fantasies that I read this month was Wildest Dreams by Kristen Ashley. Yes, it's a romance as well, but this is way more fantasy than romance. So that's why I'm going to call it a fantasy. I put it in fantasy in my stats rather than a romance because of that. But essentially, this is what the manga people call an isekai style story. So it's a woman transported into another world. This time it's by choice. She trades places with her worldly twin / clone, and ends up being foisted into a marriage of a man who can control the dragons and the elves of this world. And she's ready for adventure. He treats her horribly because of who her person in that world was, but he knew very quickly that this was not the same person. He is a little harsher on her than I would have liked normally, so I did give this one 4 stars. It is definitely a grumpy sunshine situation, and he is very alpha, and just like with all Kristen Ashley books, if you don't like an alpha, don't read her books, because that's what she loves to write. But I did really enjoy myself. I had a great time. One book that I have since gotten rid of, I was sent an early finished copy of Underneath the Sycamore Tree by B. Celeste. I did try to read this. I read this while I was spending some time with Izzy, sprinting with her, and it ended up being that this book is very new adult. They're technically still in high school new adult, so barely out of YA kind of a situation. And that is just not what I enjoy reading these days. I don't think it's written badly by any means. So I'm just not giving this book a rating, and I'm just going to let everybody else read it. I do think the writing is enjoyable enough that if there was a B. Celeste title that came out that I was more interested in, that had some slightly older characters, I would probably pick it up and probably really enjoy it. This also has that step-sibling trope. Granted, they did not grow up together, and I'm usually more okay with that, but he's also a bully on top of it, and I do not love that situation typically. And so there was just a lot of things trope-wise that are just not my tropes. So I've just opted out of giving this book a rating, and I still appreciate Bloom for sending it my way, and I have since sent it on to someone else who would enjoy it. So there is that. I have a couple of ebooks and then a couple of audiobooks that I want to talk to you guys about real quick. So first up, we have Rootbound. This one, it's by the same person who writes Funny Feelings. I can't think of her name right now. I'll put the picture here, obviously. Tara DeWitt, that's who it is. It's the same person, but it's like a cowboy ranch style romance. And I loved my time with this. I thought this was really sweet, really fun, solid 4 stars, maybe 4.5. But I really enjoyed my time with this. It was just what I needed at the right time. And it was really cute. I just really enjoyed it because it's like her dad and her mom separated, and her mom has since passed away, and then she gets hired at this job that technically takes place at her dad's ranch, and the ranch was the biggest reason like their parents weren't together anymore. And so she'd already agreed to the job before she found out it was her dad's ranch. And so she shows up there to do her job, and the hired hand was actually raised by her dad and stepmom. And so he's like, I don't know the people you knew. Like, I don't know the family that you knew, but that is not the family that I met and that helped raise me. And so she gets to get reacquainted with her family while she also gets to know him. It's really fun. I really enjoyed my time. Would definitely recommend checking it out from KU because it's totally worth it. The other one is an ebook that I've had on my Kindle forever, and it's called Knockin' the Boots. This is a little short novella that's like a 1.5 in a series, but technically it's a brother's best friend trope, and it's a mutual pining. They've been pining for each other for years, and then they finally both take the initiative and take the dive and start knocking boots. And the morning after, her brother walks in and is in the apartment when she comes out of the bedroom in his shirt saying, I'm not sure we should tell my brother yet. And so from there, they figure things out. Again, it's a novella, so I don't want to say too much more. I had a great time. And he's a rancher. She's a hairdresser. Like, I loved everything about this. And then the 2 audiobooks that I have not talked about yet are both nonfictions, actually. And they're ones that I've had on my audio file for a while because they are narrated by the people who wrote them. So I was very interested in the audio specifically. So the first one is As You Wish by Cary Elwes, who played Wesley in The Princess Bride. This is all about his experience filming and working with The Princess Bride and its cast and its director and everything. It was an absolute joy because when he had gotten quotes from other people in the cast, as long as they were able, they narrated their own parts. So you hear Chris Sarandon, you hear Robin Wright, you hear Billy Crystal, and like you hear so many of the cast members. It was just really a joy and a fun time to read. If you're a fan of The Princess Bride, I do recommend listening to this one because I think it will just give you that slap of nostalgia. The other nonfiction that I finally got around to is Tough by Terry Crews. Now, I know Terry Crews has kind of gone through this journey of learning how toxic masculinity can be and kind of changing for the better. And this book was basically about his journey of that, how he was a tough, scrappy black kid and kind of lived his life that way for a long time. And he started bulking up very young to protect his own mother because he had an abusive father. And there are some things that he goes through, and he gets to a point where in his own marriage, though he never physically raised a hand to his kids, he was still verbally abusive and didn't realize he was being verbally abusive because that's all he knew. But then he went to therapy, and he and his wife hit rock bottom and tried to pick up the pieces. And this book is kind of all about his journey, learning how toxic his behavior was, even though he thought he was the good guy. And so it was just really eye-opening, and I really respect Terry Crews as a human even more than I already did now that I've read this book, because I can really appreciate where he's come from. And it was absolutely stunning and amazing, and I loved it. Let's talk about the other 3 physical things that I finished. Finished. One of them is a DNF, but anyways, I did finish it for all intents and purposes. So I've got Of Dragons and Fae, which is a single light novel story in which we're following this girl who is the princess's personal hairdresser, because hairdressing is very new in this culture, and she gets approached by this beautiful blonde man saying, "I've found you my bondmate." And so, like soulmates for dragons kind of a situation. And then they start making all these promises to each other, and all of a sudden he's like, "I guess you're not actually my bondmate, so see you later and forget everything we talked about." And she's like, "Wait, what?" And then she ends up having to go to his kingdom because his prince is marrying her princess, and because they don't have a hairdresser, she is there. And so they have to be around each other, and it's a forced proximity, and you find out a lot more about why he turned her down and all these things. It's absolutely adorable. I really loved everything about this. I'm not going to say anymore. Apparently this was like a month where I read things with hairdressers in them and just kind of lived my hairdresser life again for a minute, because this was really fun and really cute. I would definitely recommend it. It's nice and short. I just found it on Amazon, I think. I don't remember if I ordered it through work or Amazon. My gut says Amazon, though. I can't remember. But I would recommend picking it up either digitally or physically, whatever you can get your hands on, because this was absolutely adorable. Let's talk about the DNF, because I'm super disappointed. And of all the months to read this book, okay. So I read The Business of Blood by Kerrigan Byrne. Well, I read the first 100 pages and then I DNF'd it. So there was just very casual racism thrown around in this book. Period, end of story. And it's not just talking differently about people who are poor and people who are rich, which you usually have in these historical fiction kind of books taking place in this time. But we have people poking fun at a Chinaman. That's what they call him, but a person of Asian descent, and teasing him about his name. And then we have a indigenous person who is called the worst things you can call indigenous people in this book. I'm like, in the year of our Lord 2023, let alone the year of our Lord 2019 when this was written, none of that was appropriate. So I will not be continuing in this series at all anymore. And it's funny because her other historical romances, I've never come across it. So I don't know why she chose to do it in this series. I don't know why, but I won't be continuing the series. I only have one more book that I own by her that I haven't read, so I'm going to try that. And if I see it again, then she's gone forever. But yeah, I was really offended. So I will not be continuing the series, even though the rest of the story was incredibly interesting and I was very invested in it. So I'm really sad to be DNFing this, but I cannot support something that is so casually racist. And I'm honestly surprised that no one has said that when they've talked about this book. I don't know, maybe I'm more sensitive to it now as I've read it. I don't know. But I am very, very sad at the casual racism here. So it's a no-go for me, sadly. And then the last one I have here to talk about that I haven't talked about with you. That's what I was trying to say. My brain shut down there for a second. And that is Partners in Crime by Alicia Rai. Now, this book is just fine. It didn't necessarily do anything wrong. This is a solid 3-star. And I honestly thought I would enjoy it a lot more than I did. But this just became a walking cliche after about 60 pages. And it was one of those where you really have to suspend your disbelief so hard to even get enjoyment out of it. I like Alicia Rai's writing for the most part, but I do prefer her stuff that was indie or in mass market rather than the traditionally published ones that she's been doing the last few years. I mean, I liked her Right Swipe series well enough, but it would take a lot for me to pick up
another book in this series just because the premise was so bonkers. So essentially, like, everyone in her family's dead. She ends up back near this man named Naveen, who was like the one person that she ever really forged a connection with, but she dumped him because people were after her, and now they're after her again, but he is drug along for the ride, essentially. And so they have to, like, come together to solve this mystery and figure things out to keep each other safe. So, I mean, it's fine. Again, it didn't do anything wrong. I might not have been in the right headspace for this one. I don't know. But again, it didn't do anything wrong. The writing was perfectly accessible. I really enjoyed my time reading it. I read it pretty much in one sitting. Didn't really put it down. But yeah, it's just fine. So that's that. So books that I'm carrying over for the next month are my buddy reads with Izzy. Because we just got distracted. She had family visiting. Work was crazy for me. And so we just didn't keep going. We're currently buddy reading The Scum Villain. And then we'll be buddy reading the what's it called? The Encyclopedia of Fairies. And then I believe our next buddy read after that, we're going to be continuing in the Duskwalker series, which I'm super excited about. And then I'm going to be starting my buddy reads with Lindsay as well. We don't have any that we're carrying over because The Business of Blood was technically a buddy read with Lindsay that we decided to stop after the second date because we were both like, wow, this is bad. Okay. And then I'm also carrying over Someday Maybe. I've talked about it a few times where it's just a heavy book. And so when my mental health took a turn for the worse, I kind of didn't pick it up for a couple weeks. And it's not that I'm not enjoying it. I want to be very clear. It's just a very heavy book dealing with grief and loss and suicide and a lot of very heavy topics. So that's the only reason why it's still carrying over. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still reading roughly a chapter-ish a day at this point now that my mental health has stabilized. But I am really enjoying it. The writing is stunning. I'm still marking passages regularly in it, and it's fantastic. So with that said, this is basically a wrap-up instead of a vlog, and I'm sorry for that. But I appreciate you being here and checking this out and learning what I read the second half of February. If you are here just because you love me, leave me a black cat emoji for my Kaladin, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.
It's been raining for days now, been running like a child. Can't feel the cold, well, I'm lost here with you, lost in the woods. Lost as I should.